Welcome to the Backfield Buzz podcast, a part of the Hive Podcast Network. Cody Wiles, Logan Glover, and Andrew Foster here, keeping you up to date, all things NFL. And if you want to stay in the know of the National Football League, consider subscribing. It would help us grow the channel as we've been here since the start. We've been doing 2 episodes a week. We recap the week for you guys, and now we look ahead with a fantasy and betting preview. Usually, we get this out before Thursday Night Football, but some scheduling conflicts have pushed it back. So, and to be honest, like there was really nobody in that game we could like you could maybe make the case for starting a Micah Gesicki or a like I think Chase Brown's past the point
Yeah.
of no return. Zay Flowers is past the point of no return. And maybe the tight ends you could have made a case for, but oh well, sorry. We're here for every other game though. Glover, how are you doing though? I mean, big dub for you last
Hey,
night.
it was stressful as it was last time I played the Bengals. At the end of the day, the dub is the dub, and 7-3. I'm feeling good. Lamar is playing out of his mind. The defense, there's still some issues. I may or may not have had an absolute heart attack when I saw Kyle Hamilton go down. He seems to be okay-ish. I'm surprised he went down that hard for what it was said as a sprain, but I was scared. Non-contact, Kyle Hamilton in the open field. It scared the crap out of me. But hey, we got the dub. No torn muscles. It's okay. It's good.
Frosty, how are you hanging? I heard you're a little under the weather.
Oh, bro, yeah. We're on the climb back up, but we're still in the depths a little bit down here.
Uh,
All right, well maybe the backfield buzzes week 10 fantasy and betting preview gets you raring to go. All right, well let's just jump right into it, fellas. Glover, let's start at the running backs. Who are you starting for week 10?
let me see here. So I'm starting Tyrone Tracy against the Panthers. I mean, like this is a pretty easy matchup. He had a rough game last week in terms of like his fantasy production, but it was his best game in terms of snap share, his carry, his touch ratio over to Devin Singletary played over 70% of the snaps. Again, not a ton of work, but he didn't get a ton of catches, wasn't able to find the end zone in last week. Against the Panthers, they're the worst just team in the league. They're the worst team against running backs and fantasy in the league, whether it's rushing yards, explosive runs, touchdowns allowed to running backs. They're the worst at it all. Kamara ran for 180 yards on these guys last week. I'm really expecting a big game out of Tyrone Tracy.
I'm going Tyrone Tracy too. Um 17 plus touches in 4 of his last 5 games, 100 plus yards in 3 of his last 5 games. And Carolina has allowed the most rushing yards per game at nearly 160 and the most rushing TDs at 15. It's like a dream matchup for Tracy. Yeah, and you mentioned the snap percentage, which was very happy to see for Tyrone Tracy owners like yourself.
Mhm.
Out touch Singletary 17-7 last week. Out snap Singletary 72 to 28% last week. And he's genuinely just been good. Like it's
Oh yeah.
crazy how he's just come on, like former receiver, now running back. You could see how Daniel Jones is loving that check down to him as well. So Tyrone Tracy, I'm doubling up on you there.
It's triple. It's a trifecta.
Oh,
What did we
I
go
gotta I
last
gotta
week?
check. I forgot.
We were
It
one
wasn't
for
great.
three on our trifectas. We got the Chase Brown one. That was a smash hit, but Zay killed us, and Dalton Schultz was terrible.
Yeah. The Pat Surtain effect did not work out in our
No,
favor.
I
It
was
wasn't
kind of
even on
shocked
him.
because he wasn't on him. Yeah.
that's what it was. Is watching the game, Sertan didn't follow Zay, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this and run with it because I don't know what they were doing, but Zay was just torching Riley Moss all night.
All right. Well, let's see. Anything else you want to add on Tracy, Frosty?
No, I think you guys covered it. I was going back and forth. If only one of you picked Tracy, I was gonna switch to Rico Dowdle, but I'm not gonna switch if it's the trifecta, I'm not gonna switch it.
You're gonna start Rico Dowdle.
I
What
mean,
was
with
your little? What
Cooper
was your case for
Russian,
Rico Dowdle? Okay. Okay.
Cooper Russian, I feel like there's gonna be a ton of checkdowns against this Eagles D line. I feel like I think this could be a game where Dowdle could get like 6 or 7 targets.
I do think Dowdle's becoming a little bit more reliable, and I want to see how he does this week. But he had like 6 targets and 5 catches last week. plus a
Yeah.
receiving touchdown, plus 70% of the snaps and 75 yards, average 6 yards a carry. Like I've got Rico Dowdle, and he's pretty solid. He's been pretty solid up after this bye week since the injury or the sick illness.
I do want to see I want to see that snap count and that touch share stay the same with Zeke in
Hmm.
the lineup though.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, then Frosty, who's sitting on the bench for you?
I I'm sitting James Conner against the Jets. Um I I like the way the Jets looked last week against the Texans, especially in the second half. Their defense is coming around, the offense is starting to cook. I don't think Arizona is going to get much going on either side against the Jets team this week.
Yeah, I think that's a tough defensive matchup for James Conner. I'm taking a bit of a big swing here with my sit. I'm going Joe Mixon. Simply not because of talent. Joe Mixon's a great running back. He's been amazing all year. I'm simply tempering expectations due to game script. I think the Lions already have a really good run defense. We know this. It's the second best run defense in the league. But you're going to have to pass the ball. And if Nico Collins is back, I think the Texans are just going to try and air it out. And I think it's just going to limit the carries for Joe Mixon. And I think we could be looking at a game similar to what he had in week two, where I guess week two was injured, but similar to other weeks, I think they're just not going to run the ball as heavy. I think they're going to try and air the ball out because Nico Collins is back in the lineup. As of now, he was activated from IR today. So we'll see if he actually plays. This might hurt me, but it's more so a temper of expectations. Because I really think it's just a terrible matchup in general for running backs. And you add on the fact that if the Texans want to win this game, I think you're going to have to do it through the air because I think you could fall behind quickly. If you run the ball too much, Lions are going to outrun you. They're just going to out. If you want to get into a running battle with these guys, they're going to outrun you. They're going to kill more clock, and they're just going to end up winning the game.
I mean, I thought about it, I'm not gonna lie. I think he's produced too much to be a sit.
Yes, it's definitely like it's a big swing, but I also was looking through the running backs. I just didn't find anyone that I liked in like terms of matchups or situations. There's not a lot of guys this week that are in rough spots. A lot of guys have favorable matchups when you're looking at the guys who are borderline or some guys you might be considering to sit. They all have really solid matchups. They've all been pretty consistent as Joe Mixon has, but it's just this matchup is rough for me, and the Texans, I don't like the matchup against the Lions.
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt because I struggled to find a running back to pick as well. I'm just gonna say real quick, good spot for the Texans this week. Coming off a mini bye, Nico Collins looks like he might be coming back. I don't
I don't
know.
think there's a way you
Nico,
can be in a good spot when you're playing the Lions.
they can't
You
beat
just lost to
everybody.
the Jets too.
They can't beat everybody. Just watch. Watch.
The Lions right now are the best team in football. Like the Chiefs are the Chiefs, but the Lions been playing unreal football on both sides of the ball, even without Aiden Hutchinson. Like they're the best team in football to me right now.
Okay. All right. Like I said, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt because it was tough. I ended up going James Conner as well, even though like I'm not happy with it. Like I'm really not. I didn't know really what to do. He's put up 100 yards in two of his last three games. He's RB 15. But yeah, the Jets, they did. It's not even like they limited Joe Mixon really. But I didn't know what else to do, and I don't like the vibe, the stench of this Cardinals team, and I have a feeling the Jets are just kind of clicking it together a bit more, and maybe game script, um, will play against James Conner as well. So that's honestly the best reasoning I could come up with. Um, so let's move over to the wide receivers now, where Glover, who did you go?
I'm starting Jordan Addison. It's another spot where really there wasn't a ton of guys I liked. Um, but Addison's got a favorable matchup this week against the Jaguars, who the big thing I think for Addison is he hasn't been getting the big plays he did last year, or even I think it was week two or one when he first came back into this before he got hurt again. He hasn't been getting those big explosive plays. That was what he was so good at last season, his rookie year. Jacksonville is so bad at getting torched over the top with deep routes or big old passing plays. I think Jefferson's going to go nuclear, and I think Addison will have a really solid game due to the fact that Jackson's just not good in general. He can get a lot of catches and just get open easily, but I think he's due for a big, you know, 60-yard touchdown on just a deep shot. He just burned someone.
I
Frosty.
don't mind that. I mean, it's Jacksonville, right? Like they're bound to give up a massive touchdown. I went with Khalil Shakir. Um, so I was looking into the Bills offense a little bit. Shakir has double the targets of any receiver this year against zone coverage, and the Colts use zone coverage on 86% of their plays that they run. It just there's no Keon Coleman. Amari Cooper isn't like fully into the offense yet. I just think this is going to be a massive week for Shakir.
And I guess you brought up the targets, and if he's getting tons of targets, he only has three incompletions thrown to him all season. So like he's pretty reliable. He gets the ball when he's open, he catches it, he doesn't drop the ball. So if he's getting the targets, he's due for a solid game.
Yeah,
I was just,
and especially with no Coleman.
yeah, I was just gonna bring up the fact that like he's usually catching the ball if it's in him in the end, so you can just watch the games and see that. Um, I'm going George Pickens versus the Washington Commanders. I came across some advanced numbers for him, and it's kind of encouraging. If you own George Pickens, to be honest, he's fifth in red zone targets in the NFL, sixth in yards pass attempt, like per target. And it's a good matchup this week. Washington allowed the ninth most receiving touchdowns this season with 14. And it's also encouraging that Pickens' snap percentage increased over the last four games. I know Lattimore's there now, but
He's not playing this week.
that's what I was just gonna get
Oh,
to.
okay. Lancey.
I'm a professional. No, yeah, he's not going to play this week, and George Pickens has led all Pittsburgh wide receivers in receiving yards in five straight games. He's been their wide receiver one. Russell Wilson's come in and made him look a lot better. He's Russell Wilson is just chucking it deep, really, and he's putting it in a solid spot for his receivers to go get it, and that's what's happening. I don't think Russ is doing anything crazy. It's just he's pushing it down the field accurately, and that's just something Fields wasn't able to do. So, George Pickens,
Yeah, like I think if Lattimore was starting to be a little riskier because the Washington defense has looked better in recent weeks, but it still doesn't have the talent in the secondary to really keep up with a guy like George Pickens. And the thing that's been the biggest difference is like it's not like Russell Wilson's making like he's making good throws, but he's not making the greatest decision when he's just chucking the ball deep. He's
yeah,
seeing Pickens covered or not, he's just chucking it.
but he's
Just
throwing it back shoulder of the
Mhm.
DBs and the wide receivers, so the wide receiver
Yeah.
could just he's putting it where he's
George Pickens is a great jump ball receiver. So you
yeah
put it up, he'll likely go grab it. Fields didn't have that confidence. Fields wasn't even taking that shot. He was never risking that. And I think that's really ended up being his downfall, is not taking that chance. It's the reason why he ended up getting put on the bench, is because they couldn't rely on him to, push the ball, actually make a big play out of something. And Pickens is a big play receiver. He makes those big jump ball catches. He's got really good body control in the air. So when Russ is just chucking it up, he's a pretty good option.
right. Okay. Who's next? Who wants to go next? I guess fight for it. Who's just dying to get their their wide receiver start out? Or the wide receiver, yeah,
That's
sit.
it.
Who
That's
wants
it.
to go first? Who wants to go first?
I'll
Rusty? Yeah, okay,
I'll,
go
I'll
ahead.
I'll go. I'm sitting Marvin Harrison against the Jets as well. I'm sitting honestly, I'd sit every part of this offense except Trey McBride. I think right now. I don't trust Kyler Murray. I definitely don't trust Marvin Harrison on Sauce Gardner. I think that's going to be a terrible matchup for him. Like I just can't see, and he's not getting targets. Marv hasn't looked great on his own in his own right, but even when he does get open, he's not getting the ball thrown his way anyways, and it's against a guy like Sauce. I just don't think he's going to have the opportunities.
Yeah, I was going back and forth between D Hop because he's got Pat Surtain, but I'm gonna go with Marv as well. Largely to the fact that Marv's just been disappointing in general this year. Like he should be a guy that week in, week out, no matter the matchup you're considering sitting, he should not be a bona fide lock to your lineup. And it's a tough matchup. And I was watching some videos on it because I've got Marv in Dynasty, and I want to know what the hell is going on in this offense. They're just not using him correctly. That's the best way to put it. Kyler, yes, isn't targeting him, and that's a big issue. When he gets the targets, he makes magic happen. When he in these games where he's got good target share, he's getting tons of yardage, touchdowns, all this sort of stuff. The issue is they're limiting him. They throw him on go routes, little seam routes. Nothing, they don't let him use his route running. They don't let him use his size, his speed, his skill advantage at this next level. The reason he was so dynamic in college is because he could do everything and anything he wanted. He could run the quick ins, the quick outs, go deep for a deep bomb. He could run a post, a corner, catch a jump ball, burn a defender. He could do it all, which made him so hard to guard and predict. But the Cardinals are making him predictable. He's going to go deep. So just cover him over the top and don't let him burn you. Unlike the only game he's been able to do that is the Rams game. He got a couple big plays burning over the top. Now teams are like, well, let's just cover over the top on him. He's not cutting, he's not making routes, and it's really just a terrible idea for this offense.
It reminds me a little bit of when Drake London first came in the league.
Mm.
Like and the same way that the Falcons didn't use him, they didn't use Kyle Pitts properly, is kind of the same way that I'm seeing what Arizona's doing with Marvin Harrison right now.
Yeah.
I think maybe I don't know if Kyler and Marv are maybe the best fit for each other. I will say, I think it can work 100%. We've seen it work. I think the script. I mean, I've said it a couple times now. I think the script's out a little bit on how to stop this team. Keep Kyler in the pocket. Don't let him use his legs and kill you, because that's when it can get really dangerous when you have Marvin Harrison scrambling around there as well, and Kyler finding him. I just think the script's out on the offense a little bit. And I think the team, I think it was they played the Rams. I forget which week,
Week
but the
two.
Rams completely nullified it. Or maybe, I don't know if it was the
Well,
Rams.
That Rams was his good game. That was his game where he had that crazy first quarter.
Maybe it wasn't the Rams. I can't remember which game. I'd have to go look, but some team leaked like just the script on how to, maybe it was Chicago. Uh, Keep Kyler in the pocket. Don't let him use his legs and just make him be a pocket passer. And I think that might not be the best fit for Marvin Harrison. So, I'm not going Marvin Harrison. I I can't go Connor and Harrison, even though Frosty wanted to. I won't do the trifecta. I went with D Hop cover. Kind of scary now that all of a sudden he got 9 targets last game and 2 touchdowns, but I'm just betting on the PS2 effect again. It burnt me last week with Zay, but I don't know. I just think D Hop's a lot more stationary than Zay. His route trees a bit more limited than Zay at this point in his career. So I'm hoping like PS2 is not going to be on Kelsey. He should be on D Hop. I literally don't know who else he would want to
I
guard, right? So
I think that's the thing. I think the Broncos almost weren't worried about passing. They took the route that everyone seems to be taking, and it's not working for anyone, of just trying to limit the run and like focus on Lamar and make sure Lamar doesn't beat you with his legs. Force him to throw. Lamar threw and diced him up. So like they didn't have the game plan. And I think divisional matchup with this, Sertan will be on D Hop, and there's
that
no
too.
one else he can guard. Like I think it's just the fact it's a divisional matchup. You have so much on this team. There's no way you let that go after last week. But I did want to circle back to what you're saying about Marv and Kyler, with the whole best fit, and like it isn't a perfect fit because Kyler isn't he isn't quite that super talented throwing quarterback, and he's got tons of arm talent and be a great quarterback in this league. But we see bad receivers have or bad good receivers in bad situations for quarterbacks, but the coaching staff, I think that's the biggest issue because you look at like Malik Neighbors has a significantly worse quarterback situation, a lot less targets to spread out because there's not a lot of weapons on that offense, but Brian Dable's making it work. I don't think Jonathan Gannon or the OC there in Arizona is really making it work uh, the way it should to scheme Marv open as the talent he is.
Yeah, I was just kind of adding on to the
Yeah,
fact
yeah. I don't think it's a
of what
perfect
you
match
said.
either.
Yeah.
So kind of similar to the way that George Pickens had it. Do you think he like Marv would be better with Russ, like a Russ style quarterback?
I think probably a little bit, but I really do think Kyler can make it work just as well as anyone else, given if you give Marv the opportunity to show off what he has. Like he's just not getting the opportunity to show his talent. And I think that's the big issue.
the only issue I have with Kyler is I don't think Kyler can hit a deep ball from inside the pocket. I only think Kyler can throw deep when he's
when he's
outside the pocket.
when he's running around and throwing his with his momentum.
Exactly. And that's why when the Cardinals seem to have bad games or Kyler has bad games, it's Trey McBride that goes crazy with
Mm.
like 10 or 11 targets because he's the underneath, he's the short stuff in the middle of the field, and that's what he can see.
So I think that's very fair, but that makes the issue of the coaching even bigger. Because
I was just gonna say you could
if Kyler
scheme
can't throw the
him
deep
there.
ball, why is Marv running like 70% of his routes as deep shots just straight away down the field? That's just poor coaching. I think it's coaching is my biggest issue.
I definitely think that the coaching and the scheming is a
Yeah.
massive problem there.
They got some stuff to figure out. It's still
Yeah.
like a year one for him. I mean, maybe for fantasy owners for this year, it's concerning 100%. But in a long term, like you own him in Dynasty, so
Mhm.
it's more of a long term play, and I think it'll work itself out. It's a lot of new pieces there right now, so they're piecing it together, hey?
Yeah.
So
Like if you have Marvin in a dynasty league, I wouldn't panic. I would hold on and just there's no benefit to selling him. There's literally zero. In a redraft league, you probably draft him at the end of the first, top of the second. That's kind of tough. You're in a bit of a tough spot there because he has definitely not lived up to that price tag.
yeah. All right, let's move over to the tight ends. Frosty, who did you start?
Pretty much the same reason that Logan started Jordan Addison, I'm starting TJ Hawkinson. I expect his snap count to go up a good amount this week. I think he was under 50% last week, and we saw Josh Oliver go absolutely crazy for no reason while he was not on the field. And I think he's gonna ramp up more. I think this is going to be the game where we see him get a ton of targets. They want to be able to see he wants to get the ball in his hands, get him more comfortable on the field for when they start playing all of these division games. Because I think it was the Vikings have a ton of division games at the end of the year, and they need Hawkinson to be in proper game time shape. And I think a team like Jacksonville is what they're going to do to try and get him back in form and in rhythm.
Yep, I agree. I went with Hawkinson too. I think this is the perfect time to start getting his snap up, start trying to work him into the offense a little more, get him accustomed to this system, and get him accustomed to Sam Darnold and all these sorts of things that he hasn't been able to get to. Is an easy matchup, and I just don't see like I think it just makes sense to try and work him up this week. And it's also something I mentioned. I think I mentioned it last week. It's just with the tight ends, the top 10 guys are so set in stone at this point. You're looking pretty deep to find a start at this position right now because you obviously know the, eight guys you're guaranteed every week are going in your lineup. Then it's the other ones that are kind of a bit of a mix up right now.
Sound the alarms. Sound the
Other
woo
trifecta,
trifecta alarm.
man, we're running these.
Oh my.
Well, I don't know. It's the parameters we've set. We've had such a large sample size now, right, guys? Where it's like we know basically we're just trying to find to take shots on guys. Like that's what we do. We're not here telling you to start Brock Bowers and
Start George Kittle, guys. Do it.
we're trying to find the diamonds in the rough, we're for the people who are 3-6 right now, 2-7. We're here for the Glovers that need.
I also have a 7-2 league. Come on now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
point out the 2-7 one.
I'm just saying we're here. We're really just trying to find shots on guys, and I don't know. It's fun. It's fun.
Well, yeah, and
Um,
I think that's the big thing. You mentioned the sample size. We're like, we're all smart guys. We all see the trends. We all notice who's doing well and matchups that are favorable. That's the way it goes.
all right. Well, who's sitting for you then, Glover?
I was gonna sit Dalton Schultz against the Jets, but I looked at his game log. I can't. I like he doesn't have a top 12 tight end finish. He doesn't have a top 19 tight end finish. He has an over 8 points, so I actually cannot sit Dalton Schultz. I didn't realize he hasn't really getting targets this year, so I switched up and I'm going with Sam Laporta, which means he's probably gonna have a big week because anytime any one of us sits him, it's the only times he scores over 10 points.
Hopefully, I
And
need I need that. Just a
I
side
don't
note,
because you're
I
playing
need
me,
that.
so please
I
don't.
know, I know, I need
Um,
that.
but yeah, the Texans are a tough defense to play. Just like I was mentioning with Mixon, it's a tough matchup for the running backs there in Houston. But it's a tough matchup for Sam Laporta and the Lions too. And again, I think they are going to run. I think they're going to run the ball a lot, and that's not going to bode well for Sam Laporta. I think when they're throwing it, they're going to be looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams comes back this week. And overall, Sam Laporta just hasn't been good this year. He's a tight end 18, and he really does not only, again, as I mentioned, the only two games he has over 10 points are literally the games I sat him and the game Frosty sat him. Otherwise, he's at under 10 points. So it's just not been a good season for Laporta.
Yeah, I thought about going Laporta. I'm just scarred from what he did to me the
Fair.
last time, every other time that I've sat him. Um, I went with Cole Kmet. I don't know if he's too low to be sitting right now. Um, he he's had two massive games this year. But now last week he had zero targets. He had one the game before that. With all three of the Bears receivers healthy, he looks like he's the forgotten guy in this offense now, and I just don't think you could start him.
I think like he's playing a ton of snaps, but again, this is another team where the system. I don't know what Shane Waldron's cooking up, but you have Cookman's a talented tight end. He's got skill and he's shown it off on multiple occasions. He's just not used. Just like somehow Shane Waldron can only get one receiver going at the same time. And it was the issue that JSN Louis talked about the offseason was like you could only get one guy going. So last week was Rome's game. This week, who knows who's game, but you get one game. You get one player per game. No one else gets open. That's the way the system works.
Well, I thought about Laporta. I thought about Komet. Uh, I also thought about going back to the Freiermuth well, but I feel like you guys would have vetoed that.
You've abused
Yeah.
that well. That well has been warped.
So I'm staying in that same game though, just flipping sides. I'm going Zach Ertz, which I think is somewhat fair. He saw 11 targets 2 weeks ago, then only saw one, a season low. We went from a season high 11 to a season low one last week. And it's against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is a tough matchup. And that's what I would call this defense. It's one of the best in the league. They've allowed the seventh fewest yards to tight ends this season. And I don't know, it's very, I mean, at least the last 2 weeks, it's been hit or miss. So, especially this Commies offense is going to be put to the test. And I'm not sure Zach Ertz is going to be the one to, the cream of the crop to rise, per se. You know what I mean? So, that's who I'm going with, Zach Ertz.
Well, I mean, mine feels like the big swing with Laporta, but like Laporta's a tight end 18, Cole Kmet's a tight end 11, Zach Ertz is a tight end 13. So like they all fit. But yeah, like Zach Ertz, you saw a season low in snap percentage last week out of nowhere.
Yeah.
After having back-to-back 14-point games and a 10-point game the week before that, he seemed pretty reliable, and all of a sudden he's just not.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for the start situms. Let's move over to the best bets, gentlemen, where it's been I'm not sure how we did last week. I'll have to check that. But let's move on here. Anybody want to go first? Anybody just locked in on their pick? Like Glover, how you feeling about your best bet?
I'm not really like I don't really got anything that's standing out to me right now. Let me
Frosty?
overlook.
Really, I'm like 100% confident in mine. I'm taking Bills minus 3.5 against the Colts.
That's
That
pretty
seems
good.
like a hilariously low number for this Bills team, even regardless of if they don't have Keon Coleman or not. They should torch this defense. And Joe Flacco did not look good against the Vikings. I know the Bills defense isn't the Vikings defense, but the offense didn't get going at all. Taylor didn't look great. Michael Pittman Jr. got ruled out. I don't know how the Colts are going to manage to move the ball against this team. I think the Bills could blow them out very easily.
Yeah, that's fair. There's a lot of I actually like look scrolling. There's a lot of weird spreads. I don't mind the Monday night one, which is Rams minus 1.5 versus the Dolphins. I don't mind that, but the Saints Falcons, the Falcons are only minus 3.5.
Yeah.
This Saints team just lost the Panthers by 4 and traded away Marshawn Lattimore. They're gonna get killed by the Falcons. It's a divisional game, yes, but like Atlanta looks amazing lately, and the Saints look like arguably the worst team in football, just fired their head coach. just traded their number one defensive player.
Olave just got hurt.
Olave's
Shaheed's
hurt.
still hurt.
Shahid, where is this coming from? Where do you get 3.5?
I think it's yeah, I think it's the defense. I think the defense is still solid. I mean, well, Latimer's gone now, so we'll see. But
The defense is solid, but they just allowed what, 26 points to Bryce Young? I am not at all scared about this defense.
I'm just trying to. I was just trying to play
Yeah, you know,
devil's
like I
avocado
don't
to
see it.
you.
I'm so like I'm baffled.
We'll see. Well, there. It seems like you.
I stumbled on something that's amazing.
What was your one before this? Did you have like one that you were eyeing?
I hadn't really glued it down before we started this. So this
Mm.
was it jumped out.
Spur of the moment. Oh,
It was,
okay.
it just jumped out to me. I had to go with it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, you guys seem pretty confident. It was now I now I feel like I have to be confident in my answer, which I'm not. I thought about Texans. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, you did.
Oh, there's no
Haven't
way.
haven't you gone 0 for like 4 or 3 on your Texans spreads? Like all your losses when you picked the Texans.
Oh wait, did I go Texans last
You went
week?
Texans last
Yeah,
week. So did
yeah,
I. I
because
took Texans
they were
plus money
minus
money.
1.5, or it was something like
It
that.
was like they were
They weren't
plus money.
favored. Yeah.
I took Texans plus money as the money line.
Yeah, I took the spread and they did not cover.
What did I have last week? Oh, I had Rams.
Yeah.
I had Rams like -1 or something.
All right. Well, that was a dub for you, right? I think.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I thought about Texans. I'm not gonna do it. But like I like the matchup.
Why?
They're on a mini bye.
It's the Detroit Lions. I don't give a shit if you're on a mini buy. How
I
do
had
you
Nico
like this? How can you
and
You
like
just
this
lost to the
matchup?
Jets. You couldn't score on the
I'm
Jets.
sorry,
okay,
there's no
the
way I'm
matchup,
winning
okay,
this matchup.
wait. Sorry. Whoa. Wait. The matchup wasn't the right word. I like the spot.
It still doesn't like there's no world where you should be going into this weekend with any sort of confidence in your ability to beat the Detroit Lions.
Our
I'm
weak point, which has been losing us games, is the Detroit Lions' weak point. I'm not sure how much they're going to be able to take advantage of the Texans O line.
Guess who
I'm gonna throw
you
that
know who
out
they
there.
just picked up though? It was Darius Smith. He's been really good for the Browns.
We'll see.
I don't like your odds.
I was gonna say first game in, it might not be like that, but Edge,
At Edge,
you can get away with it
you
a
can plug
lot.
and play.
I'm not doing it. I just wanted to. I got to push a little bit of propaganda here. That's especially come for. Um, I'll end up going the Bills. I think that's pretty solid. Uh, yeah, 3.5. The defense has actually been better lately for Buffalo. Like just I'm not sure why. Like they got injuries still. Maybe just the guys that got in now are playing a bit better. Uh, and yeah, this indie team is a mess, dude. Like it's a mess. We talked about it. Like everybody was like, "Oh, Flacco's gonna come in and save the season." Which, to be fair, the sample was like it was better with Flacco than A-Rich, but I think maybe just A-Rich is making Flacco look a bit better. And
Yeah.
now teams have some film on him on the year, and now Pittman's out, I believe. He like today, like 5 minutes before we started recording,
Yeah.
didn't practice, so I believe he's gonna be out. Yeah, I like Bills 3.5
I think the biggest thing last week with Flacco was that Vikings defense is good.
for
And
sure.
Flacco's not, not that hard to read what he's going to do in that offense. And Brian Flores is going to figure that out pretty quickly and know how to game plan for it. So it was a really good game planning for the Vikings and Flores to shut them down. I don't know if that's going to happen every week, but this is a good matchup to really see if Flacco can actually get anything done.
I
It's
mean,
another tough defense, but
I'd be surprised if Buffalo just didn't blitz the heck out of him.
yeah,
Minnesota did a lot of that.
he's 40. I mean, he's not going to
Exactly.
leave in the pocket like that.
Exactly. And I mean, this Colts O line, like, I think it's most sort of living off of like vibes and what's the reputation at this point? Because
I think
I'm
it's
not
still
so
like
sure anymore.
it's still ranked as like the best O line according to PFF. It's up there still.
I
Maybe
maybe run blocking wise,
Quentin
I'm not.
Nelson. I think that's where you're going from. Quentin Nelson isn't the best player in football, as we were all talking about him 3 years ago. But the O-line itself still is very, very good.
For sure. I mean, it's part. It has to be to me part of the reason why they're not doing so hot. Was it like I mean they're still what? They're 4-5, right?
They are a little hurt on the O-line, though. I will say that they are a little injured. They're out Ryan Kelly and Will Fries.
Yeah, I agree. That's
So
uh
starting center, starting right guard.
yeah, I didn't even know Fries. I didn't even know Fries was out, but yeah, that's I think it'll do it, right? Anything else you guys want to say? Okay, cool. Well, thanks for watching. The Backfield Buzz, Cody Wiles, Logan Glover, Andrew Foster. Subscribe if you want to see more from us. All right. Keep it buzzing.